Good morning and welcome to our first of a series of webinars in the iGaming space. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about responsible gambling, its implications, and how AI can help us build a robust solution to tackle the issue. My name is Nikos Volakis. I have years of experience into the iGaming space, among other sectors like media, retail, and finance. Together with me, I have Darren, our business development manager. I don't know, Darren, if you want to say something about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. As Nikos has just mentioned, my name is Darren Tibbs. Some of you I have spoken to over the past few weeks, obviously, about this webinar, so thank you for joining. I have around 6 years experience working within data consultancy, and I've worked across multiple sectors with clients of all sizes. I've got exposure working with 2 large gambling operators on real-time decisioning and next best action, and OBIE, Oracle Business Intelligence Systems and Solutions.
Thank you, Darren. So we're talking to a number of clients, and responsible gambling is becoming a main discussion point during our interactions. So operators need to clearly demonstrate that they are effectively handling responsible gambling, and how they manage customers that are facing challenges with the problem gambling is actually a key question. We are here today to share our perspective on the matter. We are a technology company that we have a number of solutions on being responsible gambling, where we can help you actually address some of the concerns you may have around that, or how in general to apply technology to deal with these challenges right now. We understand that our audience today is mixed with business and technology people, so we will try to keep this webinar at higher business level without getting too deep into technical aspects, but we'll be happy to, of course, schedule individual meetings with any of you in the future to dive into more detail in our solutions. As we go through the session, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask questions that I will try to answer at the end of the session. If I cannot answer your questions during this webinar, of course, I will follow up with the individual answers offline. So what we will be discussing today? We will start our conversation trying to define responsible and problem gambling. We will then talk about the current solutions in the market, what are their strengths, but also weaknesses before moving to our approach in tackling the issue. It would be good at that point to understand the opportunity and why such solutions will help the operators brands, but also the industry as a whole. Finally, we will give you a brief overview of our company. We'll touch on other solutions we deliver in the space before moving to the actual Q&A session. So what is responsible gambling, and why problem gambling is something we should tackle immediately? So if we could simply define what problem gambling is, we could summarize it in one sentence. Problem gambling is characterized, people with problem gambling are characterized by difficulties in limiting money and their time that they spend on gambling websites or applications, which actually leads to adverse consequences for the gambler himself or herself, others around him, or the community. If we could classify all the population into 5 big categories that affect their behavior in terms of gambling, we have the people that do not gamble at all, and actually we're not interested in at the moment. We have the recreational gamblers that are casually gambling before we move into this warning orange area where we have the serious social gamblers that treat every opportunity as small gamble opportunity. These people are not exhibiting yet problematic behavior, but there is a thin line between their current status and becoming problematic. Then we have the people with harmful involvement, and by that we mean that their actions are harming not only them, but also the people around them, and consequently the society as a whole. And finally, we have the extreme of pathological gamblers. Now, our main point of interest here is to understand through technology those behaviors that lead from the left side of the spectrum to the right red one. We mainly tackle the user group in the middle, that is also the main revenue generator for the operators, and try to quantify those behavioral characteristics that are affecting the transition to problematic behaviors. So we are focusing on the online part of the gambling business and not on the retail one. As a result, it would be good to examine why online accelerated the problematic behaviors. Not only accelerated the problematic behavior, but also made it more difficult to identify it and tackle it. And why is this happening? Because it is faster, can form a flow effect where it's so fast and continuous that people don't know how fast they are falling or how far they are into debt. It is isolated. Users are more isolated, meaning they do not interact with each other or answering any questions. It is anonymous. Nobody knows exactly who you are. You have 24/7 access to any gambling or website or application, and it's cashless. And by that, we mean you have digital wallets and no real money is invisible. It's not tangible. So now we'll talk about the existing solutions in the market. What are their strengths, but also their weaknesses. Currently, we have two big categories of solutions in the market. We have the so-called rules-based on knowledge-based system solutions, the machine learning powered solutions, and sometimes we see the combination of two in a complementary manner. So what is exactly a rules-based system? It is a system that relies on thresholds and ratios that is built around accumulated business knowledge. For example, give me a notification when a player exceeds the average bet amount, or whenever a player's wagering frequency increases, let's say, more than 30% week on week. Of course, it could be a combination of the two rules or a hierarchy of numerous such rules. The second biggest category is that of the simple machine learning powered solutions. Usually these solutions are off the shelf, generic, and are used across game types and locations. They rely heavily on generic features and on the so-called first generation machine learning algorithms like random forests and etc., which try to classify people into problem gamblers or not. At this point, if you don't mind, we would like to introduce a poll to understand what kind of solution our audience has. A radio button menu will appear on your screen, it just appeared, and I would appreciate if you click on an option that better describes your approach. Just to remind you here, the poll is anonymous and just shows aggregated results. I will give it a couple of minutes or for everyone to. So very, very interesting results so far. I think the rules-based system is the dominant in the market right now. So it is now, this gives me a good opportunity to talk to you about the next slide, which is about the positives and negatives of each one of the categories of solutions. So before introducing our new approach. So the good thing about the rules-based system is that it consists of easy to define rules that are quite intuitive and understandable by everyone. A small team of software engineers, with the help, let's say, of the business users, can build and operate such system. On the negative side, though, these kind of systems eventually become very, very difficult to maintain. Adding new knowledge to the system could lead to contradiction with the old rule set, and the ever-expanding rule set will make the system unmanageable. Furthermore, rules-based systems are quite ineffective. And what do I mean by that? They are not effective at widening the net of analysis. Rather, they focus on absolutes and often extremes. As a result, they miss a significant amount of problem gamblers that are hiding under more difficult to identify patterns. And of course, they are also easy to reverse engineer. If systems rules remain static and not dynamic, users can adjust to their approach and trick the system. Now, of course, you may ask why a user will try to trick a system that is trying to help him or her. Of course, it may be the case that the user may try to blame the operator that did not manage to identify him or her as problematic gambler and ask for refunds, and this also could lead to fines. Now, what about the second solution? The off-the-shelf machine learning powered solution has the advantage to rely on simple first-generation machine learning algorithms that we can easily interpret and deliver acceptable results based on generic features like age of the gambler, the sex, the session duration, and the stake size. Let me, of course, remind you at this point that machine learning algorithms try to identify the rule set of the knowledge-based systems automatically without human intervention. And most of the time, they can come up with rules much more advanced than the rules-based systems. Such solutions, though, are one size fits all, are not bespoke to each operator's needs, and do not easily adapt to all game types, locations with different socioeconomic, let's say, environmental characteristics. And furthermore, by utilizing only generic features or factors that affecting, let's say, the problem gambler, that can describe a problem gambler, the solution ends up having weaker predictive power. Sometimes people try to tackle the latter issue by integrating a rules-based system on top of a machine learning one to fill the gaps, let's say, and eventually we end up again in an unmanageable system. So to summarize what we just said, the current solutions work, but are ineffective in the way they deal with the problem, as they deal with it partially, and they are not bespoke. So at this point, I will move to our approach and how we as DataSparQ handle responsible gambling as we partner with operators and software providers. So what we have found to be true by working with clients is that problem gambling is a behavioral issue. This slide dictates the cycle of a pathological gambler. It all starts with a need to escape from reality or just a desire to win. Then the person gambles, and either he or she wins and gambles for more winnings, or eventually loses. And this leads to chasing the loss, which results in more loss. This generates, of course, a bad feeling for the person, which ends up with little or no money. And in order to escape again from this bad feeling or win more money, the vicious circle starts again. The ineffective identification of such behaviors has also negative impact on the operator's brand and the industry as a whole, as it stigmatizes the industry, and because it cannot effectively identify problematic behavior and protect the users. So, as we said from the beginning, we need to find ways to quantify online behavior in order to effectively identify problem gamblers and lead them to a safety path. So why is it now a good time to address the problem? If we combine the shifting change in cloud technology that actually enables us to access compute power that was not available before, that we can use only when we need it, with improved, if you combine with improved internal behavioral data and new external data sets like weather data, demographic data, socioeconomic data, we can apply new research methods in the AI space to derive new powerful algorithms like customer segmentation and behavior analysis, which eventually will lead us to predict problematic gamblers. So to achieve this, we needed a new approach. What we have done is we have built systems that can learn from more granular behavioral data, infer mood, the mood of the gambler at the point of each point in his journey on the website or on the application, and identify hidden patterns in lower level features. To achieve this, we had to apply multimodal systems that perform learning in stages. And in the next slides, you will see more what I mean. It's not anymore one size fits all. We have to apply a system that utilizes multiple models and learns from data in stages. And then on top of that, we apply new second generation machine learning techniques called deep learning in order to learn from more granular data. That is, as I said, what you will see in the next 3 slides. Responsible gambling solutions is a stepwise approach which involves customer segmentation techniques, behavior analysis, and deep learning techniques. The next 3 slides should not be treated in isolation from each other, as the output of each stage of the algorithms become the input of the next stage to achieve the desired results. The solution is bespoke and tailored to each customer needs and datasets available. Also, just to dispel a common perception that bespoke data science-based models are vastly more expensive than off-the-shelf products, this cannot be further from the truth, actually. This bespoke model is tailored specifically to your needs and datasets, where off-the-shelf products eventually will cost you more because of their limitations. In our experience, and we've been doing actually this for a number of years, the level of granularity details you can get into far outweighs the off-the-shelf solutions. Now, the first part of the stepwise approach is what we call the customer segmentation. Why customer segmentation? Many of you may be thinking at this point, how can I segment customers in a way that will allow me to personalize their online experience? Or how can I segment customers so I can apply behavior analysis within each segment? Now, these are generic problem statement questions that are not only applicable in the responsible gambling space, but help us identify all those different customer segments in the business and study them further. So we apply customer segmentation in general to try to personalize online experience for each segment of users. But secondly, we also need to observe the behavior within each segment at a later stage. So this exercise will help us identify problem gamblers. We bring inside different varieties of data, including customer metadata like sex, home city, age, historical transaction data like purchase frequency, purchase value, and game type metadata that are specific data characterizing the type of games that users wager or play. As you may see though, I have put in blue the so-called event stream data. Event stream data are data that capture all those interactions a user has with the application or the website. The data are very granular and are the most important ingredient if you like, it's, as I said, the most important ingredient for our feature engineering exercise, which allows us to deliver our solution. For people that may not be familiar with it, we perform feature engineering in order to identify the factors that will train effectively the system and are the most likely to lead to desired results. And typically, there are hundreds of features that we test as we search for the most important ones. So at this stage, the output is very complex, meaning it's not just a label and it's not easily interpretable. A label of yes or no, a label of category is not the case here. To interpret it and understand each segment's characteristics, we need to perform further analysis or use this specific output directly as an input to the next stage as part of our stepwise approach. So what is our next stage? Now that we have our segments, we want to identify behaviors within each of the segments. Many of you at this point, you may be thinking, okay, how can I understand in-session behavior for each segment? And consequently, can I tailor the digital experience of the user to his or her exhibited behavior? So when we say behavior, we mean, simplistically speaking, this combination of events that lead to positive or negative outcome. Multiple different behaviors can lead to positive or negative outcomes. Then what we do is that we classify these behaviors by labeling them like segment number 5 is happy, or segment of users number 2 expresses a behavior that could be classified or as angry or desperate. For example, very simplistically, if a user at a specific segment, let's say, starts clicking through very quickly and risking a lot of money, this is an indicator of desperation. We need to capture that because it could lead to problematic behavior. Similarly, if a user dwells, let's say, on top of a recently constructed bet slip without taking an action to wager money immediately, but instead navigates between the team statistics page and the bet slip itself, this shows more cautious behavior and probably a sophisticated user. So you can also see in the feature section that being decisive or indecisive as a user, as a behavior, is also something we take into account. So to summarize our hypothesis at this stage, is that you can infer a person's mood or state of mind based on browse patterns and behaviors. You can determine what specific people in a certain behavior pattern are likely to do next and prevent them doing it or enhance the action if it is expected to have a positive outcome. And of course, you can spot irregular behaviors for money laundering and addiction. Again, in this model, we use customer metadata, historic transaction data, and of course, event stream behavioral data. The features engineering exercise generates similar, but also different features than the segmentation exercise before. But at this stage, we use classification algorithms to classify actions within segments into behavioral patterns. The notation you see in the output section, like 75 or 4B, is how we number behavioral patterns and if these patterns lead to positive or negative outcome, then we know actually that we can label with emojis that best describe them just for the sake of this exercise. And let's say, for example, we do not know if a user is desperate, because we cannot see him or her. We only know that his or her navigation and click-through activity and wagering exercise led to a negative outcome of losing a lot of money, and this causes self-exclusion. And thus, we label this behavior as desperation. Again, this is a very simplistic example. In the final step, we use advanced deep learning techniques, and by utilizing the output of the two previous steps, we are trying confidently to predict problematic gamblers. At this point, you may think, how can I automatically recommend action steps for the identified problematic behavior? And of course, now that I know my segments of users and their behavior, how can I accurately predict problem gamblers? If you can see here, apart from the behavioral data in blue, we include other data sets like socioeconomic, weather, and calendar data. This is based on hypothesis that certain environmental and economic conditions play a role in influencing problematic behavior. For example, I am from Greece, so we observed in Greece that when it lost 25% of GDP during the financial crisis, problematic gambling activity increased dramatically. This is a factor that we should capture. We then use, as I said, advanced deep learning algorithms like the so-called deep and wide neural networks. So let me give you a very high-level overview of this technique. We call it wide, as we try to find linear relationships between our features. For example, if a country's economic activity deteriorated, then gambling activity increases. With the wide part, though, of the neural network, we capture the specifics one-to-one relations for our variables. And then with the deep part of the neural network, we try to generalize and identify patterns that are not captured in linear relationships. For example, we may find that middle-class people in a rainy Saturday night in a specific part of the world are more likely to exhibit problematic behavior. So with these deep and wide techniques, our net of analysis becomes wider. You also can see here at the top, we use the output of the previous two steps. If you see there in the features, we say segmentation and behavior. So we can calculate the final step. The output can be a prediction of problematic users and personalized messages for each case. The prediction and personalized messages, as well as the output of the two previous steps, can be consumed from communication systems or can be used to improve user experience and products as a whole, because you have now an analytics toolset that you can use not only for problematic gambling, but also understanding users' behavior as a whole. So here is something, just a word of caution at this point, which is very important. If you are developing or thinking of deploying machine learning solution, it is very important to strive for both interpretation as well as accuracy. By interacting with clients in various sectors, we realize that executives are most of the time, have most of the time the dilemma which approach actually to use. It shouldn't be like that. As we can see on this slide, if we choose interpretation, we get explainable results with generic rules like the one here. If a user is, let's say, above 31 years old, male, and his wagering frequency increased by 30%, could be a problematic gambler. But we achieve only 65% of accuracy, and we are neglecting the rest 35% of the cases. On the other hand, if we develop systems that are black boxes, we get high accuracy, but we will not be able to identify why and build personalized experiences. But by applying a stepwise process, as we described in the previous slides, we are able to tackle the issue from multiple angles and achieve both accuracy and interpretation of results. We also have to understand that this kind of approach is an iterative process and not static. The process that we have, it's a process that we need to refine all the time with new entries, new data sets, and new algorithms if needed. We don't want just to tick a box. We want to provide the best possible experience to our users. So why is it important to have a robust solution? Here are some considerations. So you have your bespoke solution, and of course you take control of your analytics process. You understand what is happening, and you can iterate to improve your solutions. You avoid hefty fines, as we said before, and refunds claims. You improve user experience as the user is served with more personalized messages and content. By knowing your segments and behaviors within the segment, you get the chance to improve your whole product offering or even create new products to meet user needs. You improve the trust to your brand and the image of the industry as a whole. Now, let me give you an example here. We are talking to other technology companies that do not wish to participate in industry events in order not to be associated with gambling. The industry is stigmatized, and initiatives like responsible gambling help build the image, rebuild the image, if you like. So now Darren will give you a brief introduction to DataSparQ, and I will also speak briefly about the other solutions we deploy in the space.
Thanks, Nikos. So DataSparQ is a data consultancy, and we are a Google partner. So we use the Google Cloud Platform as our main platform. So leveraging the power of that platform, we use leading edge artificial intelligence, machine learning and analytics to transform our clients' data into actionable real-time solutions, delivering improved engagement, efficiency, and profitability. So looking at our core capabilities, we aim to partner with our clients and become that trusted advisor, offering strategy, advisory, and services to all of our clients. We work across the entire data stack through data platforms, enterprise performance management, data science, data visualizations, and we continue to work and support and expand on these platforms through the use of our managed services.
Thank you, Darren. Let me give you a brief overview of what we're doing in the space in general. So apart from the responsible gambling solutions that we deploy to our clients, the following solution, like personalized gaming activities, which actually is a robust recommendation engine for sports bettors, which suggest bets and markets as the next best action. And I think we are unique in this, the so-called smart moment marketing. What it is, this is a new initiative and very, very successful. We analyze social media and try to identify sentiment and social pulse to create dynamic markets. So let me actually give you an example here. So if any of you remember the game between Manchester United and Tottenham earlier this year, Manchester was losing 1-0, and the camera caught the face of Manchester United's trainer, Jose Mourinho. And he was grumpy, as expected. So in Twitter, everyone was starting sharing this and making fun of the situation. So our solution could understand the social activity and create the following market on the fly. Will Mourinho remain grumpy in the end? And we gave the odds about it. What this actually means is, will Manchester United win in the end? The engagement with the operator side increased dramatically just by creating this. Now, apart from that, we also offer casino games discovery. So what we mean by that is that there are numerous casino games in each operator side. So they overwhelm me as a player, as I cannot find easily the concepts I'm looking for. So by applying image recognition and video analysis techniques within the game, we can tag the games for search and power queries like, I want a slot machine game that combines, let's say, ancient Egypt and Indiana Jones theme. Apart from that, we can also offer, through AI, we offer dynamic odds generation for any market. So you as an operator or as an odds provider, you do not anymore have to run costly Monte Carlo simulation across thousands of events. Our solution utilizes machine learning and deep learning techniques to produce odds dynamically. And finally, we offer, I think you all know that, the single customer view solutions. So across channel and brands, in case your brand merges with another brand in the space. So that was our presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we will go now into the questions that we have. Okay, so what do you mean by effectively handling responsible gambling? What is your definition of effectiveness? So as I described through the presentation, effectively is not just identifying 65% of the cases and ticking the box. We are striving for both accuracy and interpretation. That's why we have the stepwise approach here. So it's not enough just to tick the box and say, yeah, we're having a responsible gambling solution that delivers us the results, some of the results. We need to strive for identifying if we can. It's quite impossible, 100% if we cannot. The highest we strive for, the better. That is how I define effectively. So the next question, how do you define a problem gambler? How do you label problem gamblers to use as example to train a model? So this is coming from the historical data sets and confirmed cases of problem gamblers. As we said earlier, if your current solution can identify only 65% and DataSparQ solutions can achieve 95% on your historical cases, we also give you, this give you a clear measurement of how we measure, first of all, that, but to effectively answer your question, you use your historical cases, people that have been already identified as problem gamblers. So how do you link or correlate certain behaviors with certain gambling patterns? So you always assess the outcome. You always assess the outcome there. So specific behavior, all the behaviors can lead, as I said, to positive or negative or neutral outcome. All the solutions that led to a negative for the user or the operator outcome, we try to correlate then the online footprint with the gambling behavior. So if beforehand we know which of these behaviors, the online footprint, the click-through led to a problematic behavior, meaning spending and losing money above your means, then this is how we correlate. So what type of actions or interventions do you recommend once a problem gambler has been identified? Now, this varies, you know, each operator wants to handle things differently. So what usually we're doing with operators is to create a safe, to change the user experience and create a safe path for the problematic gambler. This usually can be done through a bot that not only is there for you to assess your behavior, but it's also your helper around the whole experience of the website. It helps you with statistics. It helps you with identifying markets, but also is there to help you when it identifies problematic behavior. With this approach, it doesn't feel intrusive because the bot is always your helper, if you understand what I mean. So how long do you estimate for a proof of concept for your application? Yes. So usually we engage with you to build a minimum viable product. So when we develop the algorithms, we assess your data sets, we bring in new data sets, and this exercise goes well, then we productionize the whole process. It is bespoke to you and is delivered on cloud platforms on your subscriptions. So so Scott is asking, what are some of the source signs in problem gambler? Yes, you know, the source signs, of course, is change in stakes, could be delaying bets. Delaying bets, as I said, is shown, we identified some also sophistication. It's, you know, everything that comes out of the box, like if you are above a specific age, if you are a specific location, if you are a specific day of the week, and if you're, you know, you increase your frequency from day to day or week on week, this is all source signs. But the source signs are not enough, as we said, because these signs do not help us identify all the cases, as we said.
Okay, so it looks like we have answered all of the questions. If there are any more, please obviously email either myself or Nikos, and we'll be able to answer them offline. Again, we'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar today, and we hope you've all found it insightful and of use. We're just going to release a quick instant poll just to gauge how we've done today, to make sure that we can make our webinars obviously more interactive and better for you guys. As Nikos said, this is a first in a series. So if you could take 2 seconds to just answer the 2 questions, that would be absolutely great. Again, it's all anonymous. And again, thank you for your time.